God bless you all, and live free or die.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, give it up for General Bolduc. What a patriot. What a good American. As if 10 tours in Afghanistan weren't enough, he has now just finished the Law Enforcement Academy, and now he's one of our great law enforcement officers. So God bless him, and God bless all of our law enforcement. So it's great to be here with you. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything because I've always spoken hard truths. Things are bad. And you don't have to turn on the news to see it. You feel it when you go to the grocery store. You feel it when you fill your car up with gas. Whether you're trying to afford rent or buy a home, everything's expensive. And then you realize we are $33 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. China owns some of that debt. Now, I would love to tell you, oh, look, Biden did that to us because he sent us down this socialism roller coaster that's dangerous that we have to put an end to. But I'm going to speak in hard truths today because our Republicans did that to us too. You go back and look at that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that they passed with no accountability, expanding welfare that has now left us with 100 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. And did Republicans try and make it right? No. They doubled down and opened up pet projects and earmarks for the first time in 10 years, pushing through 7,000 of them last year. Want to know how they spent your money? $10 million on an honors college in Vermont. Sorry, $30 million on an honors college in Vermont, $10 million to tear down a hotel in Alaska, $7.5 million on a courthouse in Colorado. The 2024 appropriations budget, Republicans put in $7.4 billion worth of pet projects and earmarks. Democrats put in $2.8 billion. Now you tell me who the big spenders are. All while 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bill, 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, 50% of American families can't afford diapers. Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years, Medicare will go bankrupt in 8. You look at our education system, everybody wants to blame COVID for education. We had problems with education before COVID. Only 29% of our 8th graders in this country are proficient in reading. 29%. Only 26% of our 8th graders are proficient in math. Think about that. And then they come out and they say over 80% aren't proficient in history or civics, and that our 13-year-olds are scoring the lowest levels that they've scored in reading and math in decades. We've got serious issues on our hands. Then you look at the border. Let me tell you, I've been to the southern border, and I didn't pull a Kamala go and come back. I went 400 miles down that border. You're not ready for what I saw. Mounds of shoes, mounds of clothes, paraphernalia, rape areas that the women and girls have to go through. When you get up in the morning, you get your coffee and you watch the news. When these ranchers get up in the morning, they get their coffee and they go see if anyone died crossing the fence. They pick up whatever little kids were left behind and turn them over to Border Patrol. I met with multiple sheriffs. They said before 7 a.m. they round up whatever illegal immigrants they can find. They turn them over to Border Patrol. Border Patrol documents them and releases them until their court date years from now. And when I asked Border Patrol about their job, they said, you want to know what we do? We're glorified babysitters. They don't let us do our job. 6 million illegal immigrants have crossed that border. Want to talk about the northern border? 170,000 have crossed the northern border. We had enough fentanyl cross the border last year that would kill every single American. Number 1 cause of death for adults 18 to 45, fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing when they send it. And then, my parents always told me, you take care of those who take care of you. I'm going to ask you if we're taking care of those who take care of us. Right now in America, 33,000 of our veterans are homeless. 1 in 3 suffers from PTSD or thoughts of suicide. We lose 22 heroes a day to suicide. If a veteran needs to go to the VA for a doctor's appointment, on average in this country, it takes 29 days. Why 29 days? Because on the 30th day, they can go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. So midway through the 29 days, they get a call to reschedule, and the clock starts all over again. It's shameful how we treat our veterans. That's a lot of bad, right? It's hard to find anything good. Congress could have dealt with any of those things, right? But what has Congress done for you lately? Don't you think it's time we finally have term limits in this country? Don't you think we need to have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75? That's not me being disrespectful. Look, these are people making decisions on our national security. These are people making decisions on the future of our economy. We all know 75-year-olds that can run circles around us. And then we know about Joe Biden. The Senate is now like the most privileged nursing home in the country. It's time that we really take it on and say enough. So that's a lot of bad. But now I'm going to tell you what I told South Carolinians when I became governor. No more whining. No more complaining. Now we get to work. How do we fix it? When it comes to our economy, let's start by clawing back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, let's go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that we know exist. $1 out of every $7 was spent fraudulently. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. You have to balance a budget every day. I had to balance a budget as governor. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance a budget? Congress, one of their main jobs is to give a budget on time. Do you know that Congress has only given a budget on time 4 times in 40 years? You know what my answer is to that? No budget, no pay, period. I will stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we will eliminate the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't go back to pre-COVID levels. We're also going to focus on the middle class, because what we're seeing in America is the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So we're going to open it up. We'll do that by eliminating the federal gas and diesel tax in our country. We'll make sure that we cut taxes on middle America, and we'll collapse those brackets so that it's simpler. And we will make our small business tax cuts permanent. They made corporate tax cuts permanent, but they made the small business tax cuts temporary. And then we'll look at the federal government, and all of those programs that we can take, we're going to move them down to the states. And what that will do is that'll shrink the size of the federal government, but it will empower the people on the ground. Think welfare, think healthcare, think education. All of those things, if we moved it down to the states, it would make it more effective and more efficient. When it comes to education in South Carolina, we knew if a child couldn't read by 3rd grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So we started holding those kids back. We put them in reading remediation programs. We brought in their parents and we set them up for success. We've got to do that all over our country. We have got to get our kids reading, or we're going to be in a world of hurt 10 years from now. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need complete transparency in the classroom. Parents have one job, and that's to make sure we set our kids up for success. And that's why parents need to be able to choose which school their child goes to. Every child deserves a good education, regardless of where they're born and raised. Stop educating kids based on a zip code. And then let's build things in America again. Let's put vocational classes back into our high schools. We had apprenticeships all over South Carolina. We taught our kids how to build the things that we were making. That's how we'll invest them into the future of our economy. And then when it comes to the border, we'll do what I did in South Carolina. I passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. We will take that a step further. We will do a national E-Verify program. We will require all businesses to have to prove who they hire is in our country legally. We will put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We will defund sanctuary cities once and for all. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy, and instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That's how we'll put an end to what's happening on the border. And when it comes to our veterans, we have all seen when the media shows us when our men and women are deployed and the tears that are shed. And we all see when they come home and the blessings that they've come back home to us safely. My husband is a combat veteran. He served in Afghanistan. When he came home, it was a blessed day. But that was the easy part. The hard part's when we got home. He couldn't hear loud noises. He couldn't be in crowds. Life had passed him by for that year that he was gone, and the transition was tough. We can't just love our men and women when they're gone. We have to love them when they come back home, too. So we have to make sure we help them with that transition. Let's do telehealth so that they can get the mental health care they need right when they need it. Let them go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. They've earned that right. Let them use GI benefits for things other than education. And if you want to know how we're going to take care of their health care, I think every member of Congress should get their health care from the VA, and you watch how fast we get that fixed. It'll be the best health care you've ever seen, guaranteed. So we have the answers on the domestic side. Now let's talk about national security. Did you ever think we'd look at the sky and see a Chinese spy balloon flying over us? It was a national embarrassment. You've got Russia invading Ukraine. You've got Iran building a bomb. You've got North Korea testing ballistic missiles. You've got China on the march. And now we've seen the most horrific brutality than we could ever imagine happen in Israel. I dealt with these countries every day. I dealt with Russia, I dealt with China, I dealt with Iran, I dealt with North Korea, Syria, Afghanistan, Israel, the Palestinians, and yes, the terrorists. I was on the ground in Israel on the border of Gaza. I was on the ground in Israel at Lebanon where I saw those missiles facing Israel. And I was in the terror tunnels, in those terrorist tunnels where they keep equipment and they keep ammunition and they keep hostages. And it's incredibly sophisticated. And you know where Hamas puts those tunnels? Underneath schools, underneath hospitals, because they know Israelis value life. And that's their way. So right now, we look at what happened this week, whether it was burned bodies, whether it was women that was raped, whether it were people being dragged down the streets of Gaza. I know you saw it, but did you hear it? Did you hear what they were saying when they were dragging those bodies down the street? Because they were saying, death to Israel, death to America. That's what they do. That's how they think. That is why Israel needs to eliminate Hamas once and for all. And the Biden administration has to accept the fact, because everybody in the world knows it. There would be no Hamas if it wasn't for Iran. There would be no Hezbollah if it wasn't for Iran. There would be no Houthis if it wasn't for Iran. There's a reason the foreign minister of Iran is in Lebanon right now meeting with Hezbollah. And what did the Biden administration do? He loosened all the sanctions that gave billions of dollars to Iran. Interestingly enough, China, #1 importer of oil in Iran. Russia, getting their drones from Iran. Look at the triangle, because the triangle is real. And what do they have in common? They all hate the West, and they all hate democracies, and they all hate America. But as much as I told you all those bad things happen and all the chaos that we're seeing around the world, none of that would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. The idea that my husband and his military brothers and sisters who served there had to watch us leave Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our friends. More importantly, think about what that told our enemies. And now we're facing the biggest threat we've faced since World War II. China has been planning war with us for years. And that's not being dramatic. They're already here. They have already infiltrated. China's bought up 400,000 acres of our U.S. soil, most recently near Grand Forks Air Force Base, where our most sensitive drone technology is. They bought the largest pork producer in our country. They've gone and put millions of dollars into our universities, stealing our research, spreading Chinese propaganda. You all got upset about a Chinese spy balloon. What about the fact that 90% of our law enforcement drones are Chinese? So think about all the mini surveillance that's going on. There's a set of technology we never want China to have, yet the Biden administration approved 70% of it. And we've had enough Americans die from fentanyl that's more than the Afghanistan, Iraq, and Vietnam wars combined. 75,000 Americans died last year from fentanyl. And if you want to talk about the military, China has built up their military at a record pace. They now have the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing space. They're doing cyber. They've developed hypersonic missiles. We've barely gotten started. And now they're the biggest developer of neurostrike weapons. Weapons engineered to change the brain activity of military commanders and segments of the population. That's who we're dealing with. So when Biden and Yellen want to tell you that China's a competitor, China's never seen us as a competitor. They see us as an enemy. We've got to start looking at them the way they look at us. So how do we do that? With strength. Only with strength. The way we deal with China is no more selling them any U.S. soil, and we take back the land they've already gotten from us. We go to our universities and we say, you either take Chinese money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over, and we get that infiltration out of our schools. We blacklist every ounce of technology that builds up their military and hurts us. And when it comes to fentanyl, we tell them we're going to end all normal trade relations until they stop murdering Americans. You watch how fast they fix it, because they know they need our economy. And when it comes to our military, we have to build up a strong military. Strong militaries don't start wars. Strong militaries prevent wars. And we have to make sure we modernize. We need to be focused not on the Department of Defense. We need a Department of Offense. The next wars are going to be artificial intelligence and cyber and space. We need more modernized equipment, but that doesn't mean you throw more money at the Department of Defense. That means you pull down the red tape, you pull down the bureaucracy, and you allow that to start moving forward where our men and women feel it. And there were two things that Russia, China, and Iran never wanted us to have. They never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We're not going to be energy independent. We're going to be energy dominant. We need to make sure no more going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia. No more getting dirty oil from Iran or Venezuela. So we have the answers. We know what we need to do to set ourselves up for success. And when it comes to foreign policy, because we're going to be dealing with this for the next 10 to 20 years, remember, America can never be so arrogant to think that we don't need friends. We need friends. We needed friends on September 12th. Stop acting like it's September 10th. So of all the solutions we have, we've got the solutions. But the biggest issue that I worry about is this national self-loathing that's taken over our country. The idea that they say America's bad or rotten or racist. I was elected the first female minority governor in history. America's not racist, we're blessed. Our kids need to know to love America. They need to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance when they start school every day. Three months ago, I dropped my husband Michael off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. And I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to fight for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? Because we have a country to save. But in order to do that, we've got to acknowledge some hard truths. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That is nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. But to win the majority of Americans, you're going to have a new generational conservative leader. You got to leave the negativity and the baggage and the headlines of the past and move forward with the new issues and the bigger solutions to go forward. And it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage from every single person in this room. Courage for me to run, and courage for every one of you to know, don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't vote in this primary. It matters. Because this primary comes down to whether we want to see a President Kamala Harris or not. We have to have someone that can win a general election. We will not survive a President Kamala Harris. You know, someone asked me why I was running when I first announced, and I said, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for my husband Michael and his military brothers and sisters because they need to know their sacrifice matters. They need to know that we love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. And I'm doing this for my son who's a senior in college, and I am tired of watching him write papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. And for the first time, 78% of Americans don't think their kids are going to live as good of a life as we have. I'm not okay with that. You shouldn't be okay with that. We do have a country to save. But I'll tell you this, if you will join me, if you will commit, if you come together in this fight, I can promise you that America's days are yet to come. Thank you very much. God bless you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.